sometimes people make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes set us back a lifetime. But one convicted felon is trying to make the most of his second chance. Take a look.
Just after my 18th birthday, I committed a robbery and unrelated shooting with a group of guys because we were strung out on drugs and we ran out and we were trying to get more. We went to court, and then the day of sentencing, in my case, the sentencing guidelines called for 10 to 16 years, and the judge sentenced me to 32 years. So living with someone in a prison cell is essentially like a trial by fire for any kind of friendship or any kind of relationship, because there's no space and there's no privacy and there's no separation and there's no, oh, well, I'm going to go to the store, we'll talk about this later. It's just having to be able to talk things out and communicate. I had this need to understand how I could have committed the crimes that I did and what could we do about it. I was in prison for just under 19 years before receiving a conditional pardon from the governor of Virginia. Nobody's going to care about my story. I'm just some guy who committed a crime. So I did. I got up to the top of the mountain and I had this emotional experience, and I made a recording of it and I put it on TikTok. And about a week later, I had 10,000 followers. And I realized that people are interested in the lives that they don't understand or the experiences that they haven't had. So being able to share my experience in a way that is kind of honest and not a tough guy perspective or not a victim mentality, but just a genuine, recitation of what happened, seems to be appealing for people.
Wow. Please welcome to the show live, Jesse Crosson. Jesse, thank you so much for just being so real and candid. Clearly, you're striking a chord with many people out there. When you started your TikTok, did you ever imagine that it would blow up as big as it has? I mean, you have over 500,000 followers right now. Why do you think it has impacted people the way it has?
I never could have expected it. I mean, we had a local person who had 50,000 followers, and I remember thinking that would be the pinnacle of like success on TikTok. But I think it's, we really do. We're interested in the stories. That's one of the reasons we read and we watch movies and we watch TV. We want to hear stories about lives that aren't like our own. So I think people are interested in that. And there's this fascination behind the curtain of what happens in prison, what happens in jail, what happens on the other side of the criminal justice system that we see.
That's so true. Let's have a conversation about your time in prison, because while you were behind bars, we had 3 presidents in office. We got unlimited texting, and Marvel released 27 movies. I feel like there's one coming out tomorrow. What was the hardest part about really reintegrating, assimilating back into society?
Technology and our relationship with technology was such a dramatic, different experience. Because I remember going in and, people had phones. We had the Nokia block phones, and you could play Snake on it, but nobody could text. There was no cameras. There was no kind of immediacy of all this information. Now everything's at our fingertips, and I still have to adjust to that. I asked an old lady in the supermarket, like, what kind of oil I should get for, high heat cooking, and she was like, why don't you just Google it, Sonny? And I was like, oh, I guess I'm an idiot. Like,
wow. Jesse, there's so much to talk about. I have so many questions, but I'm so interested in the philosophy of people and why they do things. You actually shared a cell with a serial killer for several years. What was that like in itself? And did you ask questions? I mean,
That's insane.
Yeah, what was that like?
Well, I didn't know for the first 6 months. So I got to know him as a person, and we lived together and came to this kind of comfortable rapport before finding out what he had done or, all the things he'd been accused of. But no, I mean, in the beginning, it was great because he was an old guy. He was quiet. He was easy to live with, easy to get along with, easy to talk to. So it seemed like a great situation. And then the kind of pitfall came when I found out that he, did these terrible things. But after that happened, there was this kind of dichotomy of, do I judge him, only by the past things that he's done? Do I judge him by the experience of the fact that he's a really easy guy to live with? Like, I'm not going to, condone what he's done, obviously, but it was just a weird shift in perspective to have to realize that people are more than one thing.
Yeah.
See, that's fascinating to me as well.
Yes. How to separate that.
Yes.
This is such a large question, such a nuanced question, but I'm sure our audience, as well as myself, we're dying to know from your perspective, because it's so unique. Where does the prison system fail, and what can we as the collective do to make it better? Because I think people know it's not working, but I don't think anybody knows what to do.
Okay, I think that's a great question. So I was the kind of success story because I had access to resources and support that other people didn't have. I was able to get a college degree. I had access to therapists on the outside. I was able to reach out and, connect with a meditation teacher. I was able to get all the education and all the books that I wanted, and those weren't readily available for everybody. So I think the main thing is to reframe the discussion. Right now, we focus on punishment. We say, okay, this person committed a crime. We're not going to talk about the victim of that crime. We're not going to talk about the community and the environment where that crime happened. Instead, we're only going to focus on the perpetrator. And the problem with that is the victim doesn't get the access to the treatment and the resources they need. The community doesn't do the healing that it needs. And then the person in prison is being punished, but isn't being reformed or rehabilitated, which makes them more likely to reoffend when they get out. Because if we release people who are more traumatized than when they went in, and they couldn't cope and they didn't have the skills to function on the outside when they went in, how do we expect them to succeed after they're released further traumatized?
Wow, that is so well said. So what's next for you?
I have no idea. I was doing a Zoom call yesterday with a reform agency, and they said, "What are you working on?" I said, "Well, it depends on what hour of the day." I'm writing a book proposal. I'm continuing to do this. I'm hoping to get some a speaking engagement at the local university. I'm doing some nonprofit work. I just did a donation drive. I'm continuing to do the work that actually pays the bills because advocacy doesn't actually have a financial component to it. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how to put the whole the career that I would like. The advocacy I would like to do, find a way to support myself doing it. But as for now, I really don't know what's next. It's whatever comes across the table or the computer next.
How about a documentary sharing your story, Jesse?
Totally.
I would definitely be open to that.
Like
I think it could be an interesting story. Yeah.
I don't have any connections. I was just suggesting.
Cellmate. I would love to see an interview between that.
Well, that's kind of what TikTok
Wow.
is. It's essentially these 1-minute documentaries broken down on all these different segments and areas. But to bring it all together would be an interesting kind of change in approach because I wouldn't have to speak so fast or fit everything into that minute. I could actually let it expand out a little bit.
And really quickly, Al had said that you interviewing your prior cellmate that alone, I think you would be a fantastic interviewer. Jesse, thank you so much for sharing your story. We'll be following your journey every step of the way and to see what you do next. And for everyone watching, you can check out Jesse's TikTok account at Second Chancer. Thank you so much, Jesse. Keep up the great work.